Families and city leaders on a prayer walk to remember loved ones lost to Baltimore's violence.
Today is 258 homicide victims, which is way too many.
Our team follows along as the community hopes to spark a turnaround citywide.
What is your position on Dr. Santelises?
I think she needs to find another source of employment.
A mayoral candidate calls for the city school CEO to step down. The changes he wants to make to the school system, he says, is failing your children. Reports show Marylanders are paying more for their utility bills than most of the country. The hidden rates your bill doesn't show you.
And we're tracking one last heavy surge of showers and dense fog tonight. We'll break down the impact hour by hour to your neighborhood.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
Former Baltimore City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby could be suspended from practicing law as she awaits a second federal trial in less than a month. Fox 45 News is learning the Maryland Bar Council filed a petition calling for an indefinite suspension of Mosby's law license due to what it's calling a serious crime. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mary Bubala. This filing coming 6 weeks after the guilty verdict in Marilyn Mosby's perjury trial, which leaves her facing up to 5 years in prison on each of the 2 counts. January's trial will be related to 2 charges of making false statements on loan applications. Now, this filing calls for Mosby's law license to be suspended until the end of the second trial, at which time the Bar Council may ask for a stronger punishment. If the Supreme Court of Maryland does choose to suspend Mosby, she will have 15 days to issue a written appeal before it takes effect. Fox 45 News will continue to follow this story as it develops. You can find all of our past coverage online at foxbaltimore.com. A West Baltimore community is paying tribute to the 258 people killed this year as Baltimore is set to fall below 300 homicides for the first time in 9 years. But some say there's still so much work to be done.
You know, I think it's great the numbers going down. It's a positive thing, obviously, because lives are not being lost. But when you're talking to a loved one whose child has been murdered, it doesn't make much difference to them, I don't think.
Fox 45's Vincent Hill took part in the walk, joins us live with a message from city leaders. Vincent?
Yeah, Mary, 258 names, 258 victims prayed for, but even Commissioner Worley himself acknowledges more needs to be done.
Footsteps and candles to honor the lives lost in Baltimore in 2023.
Aaliyah Gonzalez, age 18. Fabian Alberto Sanchez Gonzalez, age 23.
258 victims, many lost to gun violence. And although Baltimore is on pace to be below 300 homicides,
It's really not anything to celebrate.
Commissioner Richard Worley acknowledging more needs to be done.
It's a nice accomplishment, but it's still, today it's 258 homicide victims, which is way too many for our city. We still had too many robberies, too many people getting shot. The biggest key I want to accomplish is get a lot of these guns off the street. The proliferation of guns in our city is crazy.
Those concerns shared by residents at a recent Fox 45 town hall meeting.
A hospitality worker was held up outside of my front window at gunpoint at 3 in the afternoon. Later on that night, 3 teenagers came back looking for the evidence they discarded, running away from police.
I've talked to parents who are afraid to send their kids to school because their classmates are carjacking and carrying guns.
Meanwhile, as the year ends,
Dana Wilkes,
the names of the 258 victims,
Sarah Brown, age 36.
fill the air.
Jason Scott Franey.
And with only 3 days left in the year, the city should be on track to be less than 260 homicides, barring nothing major happens. For now, we're live in the control room. Vincent Hill, Fox 45 News.
Vincent, thank you. While gun violence is down, young people continue to fall victim to violent crime across the city. 94 young people have been shot in the city this year, a 30% jump from this time last year. And recent juvenile crime concerns are extending beyond shootings. High school students from Baltimore and Silver Spring are being charged with multiple robberies in Ellicott City. This happened last month. Howard County police say they arrested 2 girls ages 14 and 15 in connection to a pair of armed robberies. 3 days later, police say 2 teenage boys threatened a woman with a gun while she was unloading her car. Now, there is a surge in carjackings and car thefts across Baltimore, more than triple the levels from this time last year. City leaders have been warning of a rise in juvenile auto thefts for months.
in the back of the Wendy's. Should be a Honda parked over there. Just check that tag on that, and I'm going to keep an eye on this kid. He walked over to the liquor store down here off of York Road.
That dispatch audio revealing coordination between BPD's Foxtrot and officers on the ground to track down a juvenile for a suspected auto theft on Christmas Eve. Fox 45's Amy Simpson has the story.
Baltimore's Northern Police District, just after 9 p.m. on Christmas Eve.
Foxtrot, over. Good night, Foxtrot.
BPD's helicopter Foxtrot on alert after reportedly spotting a car driving crazy.
That's our car. You have any units near Reddy Avenue where the Wendy's at off of York Road can check a tag on a Honda?
Tracking a situation just south of the Baltimore County corridor.
In the back of the Wendy's. Should be a Honda parked over there. Just check that tag on that, and I'm going to keep an eye on this kid. He walked over to the liquor store down here off of York Road.
From the sky, Foxtrot appearing to describe that suspect, down to the logo on his shoes.
Let me just put the description out. He's a #1 male. He has on gray sweatpants with stripes, gray New Balance tennis shoes, and like a black jacket with a mask.
And within just 6 minutes.
Coming back 10:30, 10-4. 2017 Honda Civic, 4-door black.
Dispatch revealing that car was reported stolen from North Baltimore more than a week ago.
Stolen auto, taken December the 16th at 2018 hours.
In a post yesterday, police announcing an arrest from what unfolded on that night before Christmas, saying the suspect, a 16-year-old boy, was taken into custody, then to the city's Juvenile Justice Center. This juvenile arrest, just the latest in a wave of kids and teens accused of stealing cars in Baltimore City. In early November, Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott and Police Commissioner Richard Worley said this year juvenile auto thefts were up 166%. The mayor revealed some of those suspects were repeat offenders.
There's 30 young people alone that have been arrested multiple times for carjackings and stolen autos.
Heading into 2024, Baltimore braces to see if the trend continues and if auto theft suspects will be found and held accountable. Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
Juvenile crime, a major concern at last week's Fox 45 News Public Safety Town Hall. We heard from the family of Aaliyah Gonzalez, one of the 2 people killed in the Brooklyn Day shooting. They're asking why one of the 18-year-old suspects in that case, Tristan Jackson, is being sent to a juvenile facility despite his age and the severity of his alleged crimes.
I just don't understand why we're not stressing the importance of the biggest shooting in Baltimore history, and we're not making it an example of the situation.
Jackson was on home monitoring at the time of the shooting. A DJS spokesperson says the department can't comment on Jackson's case because of confidentiality laws, and the department doesn't turn people away from detention. At a separate public safety town hall 2 days earlier, Department of Juvenile Services Secretary Vincent Schiraldi was in the hot seat. He got into a heated back and forth with the assistant state's attorney who says DJS isn't being fully transparent about its data showing how it tracks the children in its custody.
Secretary Schiraldi, I would really love to see your data.
Absolutely.
Because, and this is from 22.
Yeah, and you're going to see the next one in less than a month. I'd like to see some data from you, though. I'm not really hearing too much data from your office.
Schiraldi is also facing pushback on some of his views about the prison system. He says people shouldn't be taken to adult prisons until age 25, since scientists say their brains aren't fully developed. Well, Governor Moore has called Schiraldi a reformer. Fox 45 News has heard from others who say it's time for a change.
When it comes to hearing from DJS specifically, what do you want to hear from the secretary about what's going on?
His resignation. I'm sorry to be so blunt, but I just don't think he gets it.
The real person I'm concerned about is my cousin Vinny. He's arrogant and he's ignorant. If he had a clue, he would know what the old folks know: a burnt child dreads fire. These kids need consequences.
On a Harvard University panel, Schiraldi said parole and probation should be eliminated, arguing the systems don't deter people from crime and don't rehabilitate offenders. Last week, we asked if you think Governor Moore needs to replace DJS Secretary Vincent Schiraldi. 96% of people who voted said yes. If you feel your juvenile crime concerns aren't being heard, reach out to your lawmakers. House Speaker Adrian Jones and Senate President Bill Ferguson, two of the most powerful voices in Annapolis. Their phone numbers, email addresses right there on your screen. Well, no relief from the rain tonight as we're continuing to see really damp conditions across our area. Lots of water on the roadways. Meteorologist Wyatt Everhart has been following this weather maker all afternoon for us. He has an update on when the skies are going to clear up for us. Wyatt?
Mary, it is wet out there tonight, and we've still got rain coming down. No question, a little bit less in the way of mist and fog, so that's an improvement. But this area of low pressure continuing to bring some rain to the Baltimore area for the next several hours into the overnight. And I think the last to clear will be like the northern eastern shore, Elkton, points north of Chestertown. But we are seeing slowly but surely the heaviest rain pulling out. And that will set the stage for a brighter Thursday around here. Still the possibility of a little bit of dense fog overnight. We've seen reduced visibilities out toward Gaithersburg and Frederick just past the 10 o'clock hour. Mild night in the 50s. Tomorrow will be a mild day, but first we've got to get through a wet overnight period. We'll talk more about the improvements for Thursday afternoon and the changes for the new year. They're coming up.
Wyatt, thanks. Coming up on Fox 45 News at 10, BGE rate hikes are set to kick in next week, adding to utility bills already well above the national average. Why economists argues the rate hikes may start to backfire. Firefighters put their lives on the line every single day, and departments are struggling to fill their volunteer numbers. Fox 45 News goes to Ellicott City for an exclusive look at their efforts to find new recruits. And coming up after the break, a Baltimore mayoral candidate takes issue with city schools' performance, his calls for accountability, and a warning if something doesn't change. Another candidate for Baltimore City Mayor is calling for the CEO of Baltimore City Schools to be replaced. David Scoggins is the lone Republican in the race. He recently sat down with Project Baltimore's Chris Papst to talk about his plans to improve public education if elected mayor.
Donald Scoggins has accomplished a lot in his life. Vietnam War veteran, real estate broker, urban planner. But now he's trying to accomplish something in Baltimore that hasn't happened in 60 years. To be elected mayor as a Republican.
And I do think that a Republican can win in Baltimore if I can encourage the people to see that I'm passionate about this, and I think I can make a change. I mean, I can't do any worse than what's been done in the past, I tell you that.
The last time a Republican was elected mayor in Baltimore was 1963. Scoggins was 18, studying architecture at Hampton University in Virginia, where he learned the value of a quality education, something he says too many students in Baltimore City are simply not receiving.
All I see is a whole bunch of money being wasted. The taxpayers are not getting their money's worth. Not only are the taxpayers not getting it, the young people are not getting their money's worth.
We need to do what's good for these students.
As candidate for mayor, Scoggins' platform includes improving public education.
And as we know,
he says it starts with expanding access to charter schools.
I'm in favor of competition because I think that our school system has gotten too big and too bloated, and it's falling on the weight of its own regulations.
Baltimore City has 31 public charter schools, by far the most of any school system in Maryland. Over the past 5 years, that number has remained relatively consistent. But Scoggins wants more charter schools. He also supports changing the curriculum to engage more students while getting local colleges and universities more involved in city schools. But he says most importantly as mayor, he would strengthen schools by strengthening homes.
You cannot improve the public school system without addressing the family. I'm going to be very frank when I say this, but the black community is in very perilous condition.
This 78-year-old married father of 2 and soon-to-be grandfather wants to see Baltimore prioritize the creation of programs that help families stay together, not break them apart, which he says happened in the past.
Since the 60s, we've incentivized the breakup of the family, so we need to incentivize the uniting of the families. We need to do that. We need to incentivize it some way. And I don't see how we're going to get out of this if we do not address the family.
Scoggins is one of 10 candidates running for mayor and the only Republican. So far, current Mayor Brandon Scott is the only candidate who has publicly supported Baltimore City Schools CEO Dr. Sonia Santelises.
There needs to be some changes in leadership.
Other candidates, such as former Mayor Sheila Dixon, Yolanda Pooley, and Wendy Bozell, have already said they support replacing Dr. Santelises. Scoggins is now the latest candidate to join that group.
What is your position on Dr. Santelises?
I feel the same way the others do. I think she needs to find another source of employment because I don't see where she's that much of an advocate of the schools, of the children.
I'm Chris Pabst, and this is Project Baltimore.
Well, Chris mentioned Wendy Bozell, one of the 10 Democratic candidates to file for mayor. She spoke to Project Baltimore last week about her 10 years of experience working in the city school system, criticizing Dr. Santelises about what she calls a lack of organization inside city schools.
What is your feeling on Dr. Santelises? Do you support her, or do you think she needs to be replaced?
Unless she can pivot to having schools be run centrally, I would have to call for her resignation.
Do you see any indication that she is going to make any significant changes? I mean, she's been in there for 7 years.
No, I really don't see that.
Mayoral candidate Sheila Dixon has also called for Santelises' resignation, while Mayor Brandon Scott is the only one who has been publicly supporting her. Those two have emerged as the frontrunners ahead of the 2024 Democratic primary election. But a recent Goucher poll shows there appears to be a sizable support for a third candidate. 23% of those who voted said they prefer a third candidate compared to 39% supporting Dixon, 27% supporting Scott.
I'm Atrel Nishar with a look at the latest escalations in the Middle East as U.S. forces spend 10 hours shooting down missiles in the Red Sea.
All right, weather-wise. It has been one wet day around here with mist, fog, drizzle, you name it, pretty much every type of wet weather we've had here in Baltimore today. We're going to continue to see some misty, dreary conditions and some reduced visibilities out there. Going to have to drive carefully tonight, but this entire storm system finally beginning to wind its way out of Maryland. We'll talk about improvements for Thursday and what the last weekend of the year looks like. That's coming up.
And before we go to break, a peek at what Towson looks like right now. The traffic circle, not too much car activity on it as most people are inside, hopefully watching a holiday movie or the news on the CW. Stay with us. We'll be right back. New numbers out of Gaza show more than 2 million people are displaced as the fighting between Israel and Hamas continues. Nearly 200 people have been killed in the past 24 hours. Now, this comes as U.S. officials are meeting with Israeli leaders today to talk about a transition in the war. The leaders reportedly talked about focusing on Hamas targets and limiting civilian deaths.
We want to get those terrorists. We want to find those people responsible for the October 7th massacre. But civilians, every time a civilian is caught up in crossfire, from Israel's point of view, it's a tragedy. It shouldn't have happened.
Today's meeting comes after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu pledged to increase strikes on Gaza earlier this week, going against the advice of the Biden administration and European governments. Now, Israel's top military chief says the war will go on for months, and tonight there are growing fears that U.S. troops will be pulled into the conflict. This comes just one day after the U.S. fired back at Hezbollah, rebels who injured 3 U.S. soldiers in Iraq. National correspondent Atra El-Nashar reports.
From the Suez Canal to Yemen to Iraq and places in between, escalations of violence between U.S. forces or allies and Iran-backed militia stemming from Israel's war with Hamas. The stakes of confrontation getting higher with news that Iran was able to triple its production of highly enriched uranium at nuclear facilities over just a few months. Over in the Red Sea, U.S. Central Command says its forces spent 10 hours on Tuesday shooting down 12 attack drones and 5 missiles fired by Iran-backed Houthis, who've been attacking commercial vessels in the key shipping route. The U.S. is juggling multiple interests here, supporting Israel's goal of eliminating Hamas, facilitating humanitarian aid to Gaza, and bringing hostages home. But another top priority is preventing a broader regional conflict from breaking out, especially one that involves U.S. troops.
And once and for all, breaking the devastating cycle of violence and moving toward durable, lasting peace.
Which seems farther out of reach with each clash with Iranian-backed fighters. Some Republicans in Congress say the president should instead order direct strikes on Iran.
They have oil fields out in the open. They have the Revolutionary Guard headquarters you can see from space. Blow it off the map. Hit them over there before they hit them us, and you don't need 100,000 troops, but you need some.
Right now, every time you hear the Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of State, Jake Sullivan, the National Security Advisor, come to the mic and say our #1 goal is non-escalation or de-escalation, Tehran hears that as opportunity.
This would certainly come with risks and the potential of Iran striking back directly, not just through its proxies. In Washington, I'm Atra El-Najjar reporting.
Maryland residents are on the hook for some of the highest utility bills in the nation. Coming up, residents share their concerns as BGE is set to tack another rate hike on their bills. And fire departments are in desperate need of help. Why fewer people are willing to volunteer, and one local group's solution to stay in operation. We are continuing to follow 3 big stories. U.S. Mexican officials say they're making progress on border security. Why leaders in some of America's biggest cities say their migrant concerns aren't being heard. Fire departments across Maryland struggling to find volunteers. How Ellicott City is thinking outside the box to fill its ranks. And new reporting shows Marylanders are paying far higher than the national average in their utility bills. We begin there as rates for BGE customers are already projected to rise in the new year. Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor looks into the numbers, putting a burden on area customers.
Yeah, that's right. You'll actually need to brace yourself for higher bills for the next 3 years in a row. Rate hikes have already been approved through 2026, even though, according to this study, Marylanders are already paying a higher price. As the weather cools down and you adjust your thermostat for the changing seasons, your utility bill also changes from month to month. But what you can't set is the rates from your energy supplier. And over the next 3 years, BGE's rates will be heating up to the tune of $408 million. According to BGE, if they deliver both your gas and electric, that breaks down to an increase of about $25 more a month in 2023, $7 in 2024, and $6 in 2026, totaling an additional $456 a year by 2026. This as customers. What do you think about your current BGE bill?
It's crappy. Poopy, as I say.
I think it's ridiculous.
Not good. Are already complaining.
We're retired, and so it's tough. And everybody wants more money all the time. And, you know, it's just not fair.
The rising rates also come as a new report from Doxo Insights finds, on average, Marylanders pay $394 a month for utilities, which is already $43 more a month than the national average.
Every year we see an increase in utilities just due to inflation, but over the course of the last few years, it's been crazy.
Senior Director of Insights at Doxo, Liz Powell, says by sharing the data of household bills from across the country, consumers can better understand how much they're paying currently compared to how much they could be paying elsewhere.
If you look at bills holistically, it's one of the big ones. And so, you know, it could help determine where folks want to move or stay, leave.
Something residents we spoke with are now contemplating.
You can only get so much blood out of a turnip. It's just, sometimes there just isn't any more.
We've talked about like moving to Delaware, and a lot of people that I know, family members, have considered moving from Baltimore because the taxes just keep going up and up, it seems like, on everything.
Now, we know utility rates are high, but this study also found for overall household bills, Baltimore City is actually one of the cheapest larger cities that you can live in the nation. Reporting in Baltimore City, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Well, there has also been frustration with BGE's recent conduit deal with Baltimore City, partly contributing to the rate hikes. BGE recently released an internal memo surrounding the deal, insisting the memo showed customers will benefit from the deal. But the memo didn't provide a cost analysis, which is why city leaders are saying it's important for the utility company to be transparent.
Look, that would cost taxpayers over $600 million over the next 3 years. I remain deeply concerned about the conduit deal, and my message to the Public Service Commission is they made the right call enforcing public transparency.
The full 11-page memo available at foxbaltimore.com, along with all of our reporting on the conduit deal. The state fire marshal has identified the 10-year-old girl killed in a house fire Christmas morning in Elkton. The marshal says Kaylee Treadway was trapped inside the house when firefighters arrived. They searched the house and were able to find her, but she was pronounced dead later at the scene. About 75 firefighters were called to the scene. The cause of the fire still under investigation. Just tragic. A 58-year-old man is dead after a crash in northeast Baltimore this morning. Happened along the Alameda near Walters Avenue. Police believe the victim was hit by a car while trying to help another driver back up. The driver who struck the victim stayed at the scene. Police are still investigating. Baltimore police confirm a Johns Hopkins ambulance crashed into an MTA bus this morning. This was the scene at the corner of North Washington and East Fayette Streets. A Fox 45 team member reported seeing a damaged ambulance being towed from the intersection before our cameras arrived. There were also damaged light poles, as you can see, and what appear to be parts of a vehicle on the side of the road. Volunteer firefighters play a critical role in keeping us safe, but right now departments across Maryland are struggling to find and retain enough people. Fox 45's Olivia Dance investigates what's causing the recruitment and retention issues and what's being done about it.
When a call comes in, the crews at the Ellicott City Volunteer Fire Department jump into action.
As an on-call agency, we're constantly responding to on a moment's notice. So an emergency can happen any time of day, any time of year. So we're here to support.
An important part of the department is volunteer firefighters like Adam Sowers.
I work part-time, and I come up here more than I work, more than I go to college, just because I love it. I love the relationships, and I love just getting out there helping the community.
Robin Zivotek, chief of the Ellicott City Volunteer Fire Department, says they're always looking for volunteers.
Volunteers are always needed, usually after the first alarm fire, so after the first major incident, and then we can upstaff for hours and even days at times. When Ellicott City flooded, we had crews around the clock to support the career staff, and then any other major incidents in the county, we come back and support.
But recruiting volunteers is a challenge.
And I feel like a lot of that has to do with the current economy. People really just need to be working for money.
Kate Lovelace, executive director for the Maryland State Firemen's Association, is part of a commission to present survey results and data about staffing to the General Assembly.
I feel like it's going to show a lot of good specifics and bring to light a lot of things that, you know, we're needing from our partners and our support system within Maryland State.
Back in Ellicott City, they too are constantly looking for volunteers.
We're constantly turning down fire prevention and other sorts of events, community events that they're looking for, just because we don't necessarily have the staffing for that.
But they're adapting their recruitment and retention strategies.
We're actually working on a new program right now where we're revamping our recruitment and retention efforts and even our training processes to try and keep up with what is a modern volunteer fire department.
Evolving to keep the Ellicott City Fire Department going strong for at least another 135 years. Reporting in Ellicott City, I'm Olivia Dance, Fox 45 News.
Firefighter recruitment also an issue in Baltimore City. A Fox 45 News report in June found the city was short nearly 200 firefighters and paramedics.
More money and less work. So that's the problem we have. Just trying to keep our folks here and just have them motivated to stay.
When you call, if your house catches on fire and a unit's not in service, then the next unit has to respond from further away.
Fox 45 News has done extensive reporting on the issues facing the Baltimore City Fire Department. You can find our complete coverage at foxbaltimore.com. Well, today marks 1 year since a horrific incident of domestic abuse in Queens, New York. A husband's violent act in front of his 3 young sons, landing him in prison and the boy's mother in the hospital. Fox 45's Tom Rogers shares how a family with Baltimore ties is staying Sophia strong as she recovers.
The early morning hours of December 27, 2022, father calls his estranged wife to come out and get her boys. As Sophia Giraldo comes out of her door, the father tells his 3 sons to keep their seatbelts on. He accelerates, hitting their mother and flipping the family's SUV. He then climbs over his 11-year-old to get out of the car before stabbing their mother. He calls 911, eventually admits to his actions.
It's been a long year, but then it's been like rapid fire things, one thing after another. Yeah, there is a toll on our family, on my wife, on me.
This is a warning call for air traffic.
Debbie and Chuck Brooks schedule trips to see their daughter in New York as often as they can, but the trip from Baltimore to a rehabilitation center in Queens is expensive.
I haven't looked at the GoFundMe page. I think close to $50,000 has been raised. And I think we've probably spent $45,000 in less than a year. And most of that has gone towards transportation, just getting ourselves back and forth from Maryland to New York, and lodging, meals.
Chuck says his 3 grandsons are now living in the Baltimore area with family. While their father was sentenced to 25 years, the trauma the 11, 9, and 6-year-old boys witnessed that day will be with them forever.
We had to buy furniture for the boys, bunk beds and, dressers, and we've got them things that would just bring a little comfort and some happiness, like toys, and they've gotten clothes and those kind of things. We got them bicycles.
Now the entire Brooks family is trying to get Sophia to be transferred to a rehab facility in the Baltimore area. But the cost for the one trip is estimated at $25,000. $25,000 to get her closer to home, closer to family, who can be there daily to assist and laugh with her.
Sometimes they call and they just start talking, and I'm like, my heart is beating, what's going on with Sophia?
The Brooks family is seeing progress with Sophia's recovery. It is a slow process, They say Sophia needs someone with her almost daily to help with the multiple appointments, plus the ongoing battle and the cost to secure guardianship rights for Sophia. That would allow them to sell her car and get access to her accounts.
Well, right now, her boys are only seeing her on average now once a month, if that. They would be able to see her daily if they want to, if she was in Baltimore.
As far as the Brooks family faith,
this has drawn our family closer together. And we were already close as a family, and now it's closer together than we've ever been before, and even closer in our love and devotion to God.
For Chuck, the pastor, the father, and the grandfather,
I'm getting too old for this. It's like, so, yeah, it's tough on my wife. It's tough on her.